I didn't know what was happening to me. I thought I was gonna die.
He kept saying to us, I have no idea what this is.
I've never seen this before. I've never heard of this before.
We don't know what's wrong with you.
Dark and not seeing any light of recovery.
We have, I think, a horrible epidemic. When enough people are sick, it's going to be who's answering for this, what did you know, when did you know it?
What kind of a breakdown or series of breakdowns in the medical system can lead to a setting where you have an illness and people walking into their average doctor's offices may or may not be likely to get effective treatment for it?
I would never have thought that a bacteriological infection producing the havoc that it produces can become so politicized. The truth can be so brutally distorted.
When we moved to where we are now, and the people we bought the house from said to us, be careful of Lyme disease, and then we met all the neighbors. Every house, for sure, had at least one case, and many houses had, all of the family had been infected. All of them were sick.
Are you able to stand up, honey? All right, I'm going to shut this off so we can take you back in the house, okay?
Good, good.
All the articles basically state that this really isn't that big of an epidemic and that it doesn't really do that much to your body, and that it's just a very easy, quick cure. A couple weeks of antibiotics and you're good to go. Obviously, those people haven't actually seen what it does.
Pain, pain, pain. Relentless pain. No one would believe it. I said to my best friend, I said, look at me right now. Look at me. What do I look like? And he said, you look great. I said, you cannot imagine the pain in my body right now.
My case was sort of cut and dried. A, I was a park ranger. B, I knew exactly when I was bitten and I saved the tick and brought it to my doctor. C, I had a red rash. And D, I had a rather classic case of neurological Lyme disease with all the usual trimmings. But I brought all that to the doctors, and it took 5 doctors to figure it out.
I don't think you're sick. I don't think there's anything wrong with you.
Everybody's telling you it's in your head. You know it's not in your head.
We don't think there's anything wrong with you.
There is nothing wrong.
We've done your labs. Your labs are fine. You're fine.
There's no medicine for someone like you. You're an attractive girl, and obviously, you don't feel like you're getting enough attention. This is my adrenaline now. So if you want to see me get worse, I'll just do one length, not even a lap. Half a length. I'll have to be hauled out. Like the catch of the day.
She's become very, very good at hiding symptoms. It doesn't matter how bad she is. I mean, the girl cannot get out of bed, and her catchphrase is, "I'll do it myself."
I can do it myself.
That's right. I mean, she can do it. I can go grab something in 30 seconds, or she can take 4 hours to crawl across the house, and she will not let me go get it.
I know what my bad days are like, and I do my best to try to prevent them. So to know that I could get worse, that's not something I'm looking forward to. The unknown is pretty scary.
I live on the west side of the northern Sierra Nevada in California. I'm a writer now. I was a park ranger for 21 years until I got Lyme disease and had to quit. It began with profound fatigue. Then I developed stabbing and shooting pains. I started having vision problems, blurred vision, and then came the memory loss and the cognitive problems. And once I drove to my office, a place I'd commuted to for 13 years, and stopped on the way home and called my wife on the cell phone and told her that I wasn't sure I could find my way home. I just wasn't in good enough shape to drive. Couldn't remember how to do it. If I hadn't had any kids, I might have killed myself. My life was so uncomfortable to be in that I don't know that I would have wanted to be here had I not had stronger family connections, you know, kept me here.
I'm an event producer for U2 shows on tour. I get to do the VIP parties for all the band's guests. I've loved this band since I was a kid. I mean, I had the freaking personalized license plate. Everybody's in survival mode on tour. It's insane. It's completely insane. The hardest thing is everybody thinks I'm normal. At home, I was in bed feeling just so sick and just searing, searing pain. It got worse and worse, and I started having pretty bad neurological problems. I got to the point of just do or die, just go for something instead of sitting in my room, rotting in my bed.
Over the last 12 years, I've been diagnosed off and on with lupus,
chronic fatigue syndrome, Crohn's disease,
fibromyalgia,
lupus, fibromyalgia, MS,
fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis.
Doctors thought I had ADD.
Chronic fatigue syndrome,
Parkinson's disease,
syphilis, multiple sclerosis,
MS to ALS to nothing.
They were pulling anything out of their hat they could think of.
Doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor, misdiagnosing her, putting her on some medication that didn't work, or just thought we were both nuts.
There's evidence that Lyme disease has been around for a long time, but here in the United States, it was the early 1970s when a Connecticut mom looked around her neighborhood and noticed something was not quite right.
Well, I was frightened, really, and doctors, were insinuating that it was all in my head. In the 70s, we were all having strange symptoms, headaches and stiff neck and swollen joints. As I looked around the neighborhood, I realized that there were others that were having swollen knees and rashes. Finally, when our symptoms just weren't going away, I decided to call the state health department and report this mysterious disease that seemed to be coming to our area.
In 1981, I discovered the causative agent of Lyme disease. My discovery was published in the Science magazine and considered as a breakthrough.
We didn't know how to treat it. It was a newly described germ. It looked like syphilis under the microscope, but that's as far as we got. We also didn't have any idea how widespread it was, how much suffering it caused, and the controversies to come.
Lyme disease is caused by bacteria, the Borrelia spirochete. It's spiral-shaped, so it can drill through tissue and get into just about any part of the body. The most common form of transmission is through the bite of several species of tick, commonly known as deer ticks.
There's bacteria inside the tick, so when it bites you, it just starts sucking up your blood, like Dracula would do. While it's like sucking in the blood, the bacteria will be released, and then it just gets into the blood, and it gets into your heart, and then your brain, and then you have Lyme disease.
It seemed like for everything that I'd read about it that it was harmful, there was always something I'd read about it that said, oh, no, no, no. It's actually very easy to cure. Well, when I saw this doctor, you know, he said, you've got a long road ahead of you. I'm Mandy, take you, Sean.
To be my husband.
To be my husband.
To have and to hold.
To have and to hold.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
To love and to cherish.
To love and to cherish.
Until death do us part.
Until death do us part.
It's not the pair
husband and wife
that excites me.
There's no difference in how I feel about her now and how I felt about her then.
We'll see if he says that when I'm starting to get treatment. I'm all
It's just the nearness.
I think like a lot of people who've had Lyme disease, I've been led to wonder why it's not being treated with the kind of seriousness that it deserves. This is not a rare disease. It's thought of as a rare disease, but in fact, there's nothing controversial about the fact that it's the most common vector-borne disease in America today. It is far, far more common and much more dangerous to the average American than West Nile virus is. The Centers for Disease Control report over 20,000 new cases each year. Yet because the reporting rate is so low and the disease so often overlooked, they admit that the actual number may be over 200,000, making Lyme more prevalent than AIDS. Since 1991, the rate of cases has doubled, yet government agencies and the medical establishment seem to be downplaying the problem.
The number of cases of Lyme disease went way up in this country last year, up by 41% to be exact.
A record number of Lyme disease cases have been reported in the state of Maryland this year.
New cases of Lyme disease are up 50% in Massachusetts.
The CDC admits there are at least 10 times as many cases out there.
The entire neighborhoods and whole families are being debilitated by this infectious disease.
Health officials are now calling it an epidemic.
I think there are hundreds of thousands of people out there who have Lyme disease who have no idea they have Lyme disease. There are doctors out there who aren't looking for it.
He just kept saying, you don't have Lyme.
You don't have Lyme disease.
You don't have Lyme.
He told me that there was no such thing as Lyme disease in North Carolina.
Lyme disease doesn't really exist in Tennessee. You can't have Lyme disease because you haven't been to these areas in Long Island or this area in Connecticut.
I've been told it isn't Lyme hundreds and hundreds of times.
Are you sure you have it? How do you know you have it? Why do you say you have it?
He slammed his fist on the table and said, "Don't talk to me about Lyme anymore."
It is a national health crisis that is completely and totally being ignored and squashed. What is going on?
We have a major problem with this disease. We have a major problem finding out who's got it, treating them effectively and quickly. It's far more expensive to treat in late stages and less effective than it is early. And yet we don't respond early enough with many of the patients, and many of them get to late stage and they're sick for the rest of their lives.
Okay, quiet. No barking. No barking. Okay. I love you, my girl. I'll see you later. I'm a medical doctor with a specialty in pathology. I'm a general pathologist, but I'm doing molecular studies now in connection with my 20 years of researching Lyme disease. The research is something that I do after I've done my day's work, and if I have energy left, I work into the night. So I do the research on my own time. Okay, hi, Travis. My lab assistant, Travis. This part of the cellar is mine. The rest of the cellar is for other things in our life, like Christmas ornaments. This is my microscope. I've owned this for 20 years. It's a research microscope. My work is building bridges between what I can see under the microscope and what is going on in the human body. The orthodox, conventional view is that the bacteria that causes Lyme disease doesn't stay around very long inside the human body. That will be disproven. And we will enter an arena now where long-term chronic infections will be embraced by the medical community, and the patient will benefit.
Ellen McDonald is doing frontier research about the role of Lyme disease, Borrelia infection in neurological illnesses. And he's doing it against substantial resistance in the traditional academic community.
I'm one man working alone, and there is great skepticism that my work has meaning. And I'm working hard to get some evidence to say that there is some meaning. And time will tell.
Two groups of doctors are pitted against each other over just about every aspect of Lyme disease, from the very definition of the illness to how it should be treated.
At the present time, the traditional medical community believes that there is basically only an acute form of the disease that is characterized in a soundbite as hard to get and easy to treat. For 10 or 15 years, there has been a second group of Lyme doctors that say, no, that's not true. Lyme disease can be a persistent chronic illness with many different symptoms. So the question that is posed at the present time is, does chronic Lyme disease really exist?
We are driving from Orlando up to North Carolina. It's a little over 500 miles, which is the closest spot that we have to Florida that actually has a clue about Lyme. My biggest fear is that treatments would be unsuccessful. She could continue to have a downward spiral. Neurologically, she could have things that are irreversible.
Yeah. Hey. Hey, how you doing? Hi. Okay.
While we're optimistic that Mandy will steadily improve, I'm skeptical that it's going to be smooth sailing. She's so fragile, and her central nervous system is so irritable. It doesn't take a lot to set her off. We have to figure out what's the best way to treat you intermittently, to get you to the best place so that your immune system is more in charge. So that's a tricky business.
He said, well, we're gonna have to do 6 to 8 months of antibiotic therapy. We'll have to put a catheter in, to your superior vena cava, and then you're gonna probably get worse. So I said, well, by worse, do you mean like emergency room worse? And he said, yeah.
Let's just do one at a time. Let's do this one, and this is as needed, right? The lorazepam, and here are your supplements, that's fine. These are all fine. What I sense is that we're at the beginning of something that's going to be huge, just like I had that feeling in 20-some years ago with HIV. I've been seeing people from all over the country. They're sick, they've got a complex illness, they're being ignored. It's going to be an explosive area of medicine, and we're going to learn a lot about chronic illness. And I think that's going to help healthcare in general tremendously.
I have seen probably 30, maybe more doctors.
35 doctors.
About 15 doctors.
I've spent over $100,000 out of pocket.
$150,000.
$75,000 to $100,000.
I was misdiagnosed for 3 years.
5 years.
14 years. 15 years.
It's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I'm guessing that my case, which could have been controlled with probably a single bottle of doxycycline, at the time I was bitten, probably would have cost something like $25 or $50 total, plus the doctor visit. As it is, I'm guessing that my case is now amounted to $75,000 to $100,000.
My concern is that the majority of the patients that I see here in this office, this very office, who come to me because they've been treated for chronic Lyme disease, is that they don't have any evidence of ever having had Lyme disease once. Ever. Not now, not a year ago, not 5 years ago. They didn't have the rash, they never had a positive blood test, they never had anything.
You see, class, my Lyme disease turned out to be psychosomatic.
Does that mean you're crazy? No, that means she was faking it.
No, actually, it was a little of both.
I was originally told at the very beginning that I had a very deep psychological problem.
People called me a hypochondriac.
They said I needed to see a psychiatrist.
You need to see a psychiatrist.
He told me, no, it's not Lyme. You don't have the rash. You are depressed.
You're faking it. You need to get mental help.
You're a teenager, get up and walk. She doesn't want to go to school, she's just depressed.
You think you're crazy, but I'm not. I know I'm not crazy. This thing screws you up big time.
Tally-ho. Let the drag begin. Well, where we are now is a town in Cape Cod, and Cape Cod is considered to be endemic for Lyme disease. Oh, I'm good. This is a male deer tick that we picked up from the ground on our very first 30-second drag. This is a deer tick nymph. This is the second stage. They'll feed on a host for 5 days, maybe, and that's how Lyme disease is transmitted. It just doesn't seem possible that this poppy seed-sized thing is going to make you bedridden, possibly for the rest of your life. Now we're trying for a deer tick female. That'll complete the trinity. And here we are. The trinity is complete. There are 2 females. Let's call them Thelma and Louise. And they're on the hunt. Oh, there's another male. There's another nymph. We got another nymph. So our odds of getting Lyme disease here are going up. Despite years of education, the incidence of Lyme disease has been raised by 40% from last year. It's only going up.
This is all tick habitat, everything we're driving by here. And Lyme is turning up in states where it's never been known. I mean, I grew up in this part of the world and we didn't have a problem with Lyme disease that we know about. I'm convinced that in the long run that what we're going to learn is that we're seeing a process of ecological change. We're living in the largest extinction in 65 million years of other forms of life. While many species are dying out, viruses and bacteria are finding new opportunities. Warming climates, jet travel, and human expansion into wildlife habitats are favoring diseases that jump from animals to people. Diseases we're not prepared for.
It's possible that years ago the patients were only getting pure Lyme disease, and this might explain why the literature, there's such a disparity, where some people say, oh no, Lyme doesn't look like this. What we're now seeing is these ticks are containing multiple organisms. They're not just containing Borrelia burgdorferi, the organism that causes Lyme, but they're containing Ehrlichiosis, Babesia microti. It's a malaria-like organism. When you get Lyme and Ehrlichia and Babesia and Bartonella henselae, cat scratch fever, and Mycoplasma fermentans and viruses, the immune system gets overwhelmed. I'm not sure years ago all of these co-infections were present as they are now. Now the patients who are coming in to see me are multiply co-infected. They're much, much sicker, and it's because it's no longer just Lyme.
Ticks are very sensitive to dryness. Their bodies desiccate easily, and in dry weather they hide deep in mossy crevices on the barks of trees, or in the leaf litter, or in wood rat nests. Damp weather, however, makes them more active, and they come out and stand around on the tips and branches and blades of grass by trails like hitchhikers at a freeway on-ramp. I want us to see clearly how things are really going with nature. We have not succeeded in developing any level of independence from it, nor, in fact, are our bodies in any way independent of it. We've always said, well, you know, sooner or later, some of the damage that we do to the earth can come back to people. But I think at some visceral level, we've expected we could evade it. And I think now maybe some of that bill is coming due, and we're beginning to see some ecological changes that are capable of invading people's bodies.
A spirochete is a parasite, like a virus is a parasite. It has to adapt to different environments. So you could have a very virulent disease-producing organism. You could have one that likes to go to the joints and doesn't want to penetrate and cause injury in the brain. You could have one that goes to the skin.
One of the hallmarks of the onset of untreated Lyme is a multi-system involvement. Different parts of the body, things changing and moving around. We might have a few weeks of body aches, and then you might have a few weeks of headaches, and a few weeks of real profound fatigue, and a few weeks of confusion. Or you'll have pain in the large joints, and then it'll switch to the small joints. And then, you know, you're going to a neurologist, then you're going to a bone doctor, then you're going to a stomach specialist, then you're going to a counselor. And they get labeled as being crazy.
Severe headaches.
Cognitive problems.
Fatigue, headaches.
Cardiac arrhythmias.
It hurts on my foot.
My knees, my back.
I'm tired. I hurt.
involuntary movements.
Brain fog.
I lost the use of my right arm.
I became dyslexic.
I had hallucinations.
Blurred vision.
Light sensitivity.
It's a long laundry list.
The tests for Lyme disease were developed more than a decade ago. They were controversial back then, and in all this time, no better tests have been approved, even though almost everyone agrees there are problems with the current tests.
About 50% of people who actually have Lyme disease are negative in their test results with existing methods. If you're unlucky and you have real disease, but you test negative, your disease is still real and you still require treatment.
When I got diagnosed with Lyme, I thought, great. Oh, fantastic. Finally I'm going to get rid of this thing. Course of antibiotics, I'll be good to go. I could never have imagined that it would be this long with the possibility of being forever.
Go for Dana.
I'm very scared of actually when the tour ends because I feel like my body will collapse. I'm a little afraid. You know, I'm definitely going on adrenaline, and the pain's getting worse and worse, and I'm getting, you know, more twitchy neurological things. This is a brilliant distraction. It's so weird, you know, when you're a kid, you think of what your life's gonna be, and I'm 36, I'm gonna be 37. And now, kids and a house, and, you know, it's not what I expected. Lyme pushes you to the point of, what do you want? What are you living for? It's not enough just to be alive. I mean,
This is the height of the season for baseball, summer vacations, and Lyme disease. The disease is now being reported in almost every state, and it's reached epidemic levels in some parts of the Northeast.
The newest research indicates the tiny bacteria pose a special risk during pregnancy, since an expectant mother may not know she's infected.
We have examples of infection causing miscarriage. We have examples of infection causing death of the baby at the time of birth or shortly after birth.
I've had 4 miscarriages, 2 of which were positive for Lyme disease, and we had an 18-week loss that at 15 weeks was healthy, genetically fine, and at 18 weeks the loss was proven to come from the Lyme infection.
Elise came to me with Lyme disease, and it just so happened that as she was finishing up the treatment, she got pregnant. And we followed her with the pregnancy, and she was doing fine initially, and all of a sudden she miscarried.
2 weeks later, the OB came back and said, you were right, it was Lyme disease. The baby was infected, the fetus and the placenta were infected, Elise, and concluded that that's what took the life of this baby at 18 weeks.
In utero, fetal transmission of Lyme disease to a fetus is something that has been of concern to patients and physicians for many years. We've looked carefully at that. There have been numerous studies. There has not been one documented case of congenital Lyme disease.
Well, that's nonsense, plain and simple. And it's not only nonsense, there's significant peer-reviewed articles showing transmission transplacentally and at autopsies. It's just nonsense. How could that not be? It doesn't even stand up physiologically. It makes no sense.
Trying to have another baby has been very frightening. When I get excited about having a baby, I squish it. I don't let myself get excited because I'm so afraid of setting myself up for that disappointment again. And a day for me is like a lifetime. And every visit to the doctor is filled with fear. Every time I listen to that Doppler come down to my belly, I wonder, is there going to be a heartbeat today?
At this point, I have had many women who've gotten pregnant who've lost the baby. Or they give birth to a baby that has Lyme, and the babies don't have, the developmental growth may be off, their IQ may be lower, they may develop seizures or some other type of neurological problem, and it's not picked up because the mother was not known to have Lyme.
You can't imagine this. How could you? You just can't.
Hi, my name is Jared. Before my Lyme disease got so bad, I was able to talk. Now I have to use a communication device.
I wasn't a real healthy pregnant mom with him. Well, in retrospect, I realized that I was sick. I had Lyme disease, and I did not realize that that's what was going on. I knew something wasn't right from the time he was born. I knew it. I kept getting poo-pooed by the doctors. They said, just let him be and it'll all work out. And it didn't work out.
Ready? Okay.
At age 6, we got the news that he had brain damage, and they didn't really know why. They thought it was something that happened in utero and that the damage was done, and then we were to just keep moving forward. But he didn't move forward. He kept moving backwards.
Get you a bend, bud.
Lyme disease happened to be everywhere around us by then. It was as if every neighbor was coming down with it, and it was like hitting me from every direction, as if, you know, wake up, dummy, you're not paying attention. You know, there's Lyme disease everywhere. There's a gentleman who lives right up on the hill up here, and his previous wife passed away. She had Lyme disease, and now he's remarried, and his new wife has Lyme disease.
This man here was very ill from Lyme disease. And the house over here to your right, those people had it. And same with the lady that lives here. She has it.
I put a lot of faith in the doctors. I believe them. I want to just shake them and say, how many more kids are you going to let go untreated because you're not recognizing what's happening here?
I've never seen a child who's had late-stage neurologic Lyme disease. We just don't see late neurologic disease in children.
I used to do ballet, and I was in the Nutcracker a bunch of times. That time of year was always really crazy and running around, going to rehearsals and stuff, but I loved it.
Her ankle was bothering her. Then her right knee blew up, and they tapped into it, and they found that she had late-stage Lyme, and it was in her brain.
She just went downhill very fast. All of a sudden, she couldn't pick up a knife, pick up a fork, couldn't write with a pencil. And this all transpired in the time frame of overnight.
They insisted that she's making it up and that she was going to have to go on psychiatric medication if she didn't stop it. Rock bottom to me was that summer before we went to see Dr. Jones. She couldn't hold her head up. She couldn't sit up. She couldn't talk anymore. And not knowing if they were going to keep her on the medication, because they kept saying, no, only 28 days. And I said, well, I'm going to Connecticut, and I'm going to see this other doctor. And them fighting me and saying, well, he's controversial. And something in me just kept saying, no, you're going.
The thing that gives me most joy in treating the children with Lyme disease is seeing them get well and cured. I don't consider it a job. I consider it to be more or less like a calling than anything. My practice consists of over 9,000 children from every state in America, from South America, from almost every province in Canada, and from every continent abroad. The practice is growing at the rate of 5 to 10 new encounters per day. They have very complex, serious illnesses. However, it's nice to see them get well.
Some of the Lyme literate physicians are practicing medicine that is widely outside of the standards of medical care. The small group of physicians feel that one can diagnose Lyme disease on clinical grounds alone, not necessarily relying on any laboratory data. And then furthermore, long-term antibiotics are the right treatment. That has never been shown in any double-blind controlled randomized trial.
I've worked here for 8 years, and I've seen many patients come and go, and I've seen the success he's had in his treatment regimen. Yes, we do treat aggressively, but I think that's what works.
In a way, it's like the perfect storm of diseases because of the timing of a couple different events in the history of medicine. 1980, the United States said it was okay for government institutions and universities to patent and profit from live organisms. So the Lyme disease organism was discovered in 1981, and all of a sudden there was the equivalent of an Oklahoma land grab, people looking under their microscopes, patenting pieces of the organism. So the people that are credited for being the Lyme disease experts no longer shared information about a new, really dangerous pathogen. They hoarded the information because they wanted to protect future profits.
You have professors, especially in the biosciences, are trying to take their discoveries, often made on the federal nickel, and take them private. They patent them, they start firms. What's commercializable is driving the research agenda in too many cases, not what's medically necessary and what's medically useful.
The other thing that happened was the rise of managed care. Insurance companies and HMOs realized that if they can get researchers in universities to define diseases and write guidelines for diseases a certain way, then they could help manage the escalating medical costs. And really what this means is the people who previously protected public health, so like the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, and the NIH, and universities who didn't have any commercial interests, all of a sudden they were partners with Big Pharma, and their motivations completely changed. We no longer had oversight and checks and balances in our scientific system in the US. It was rife with conflicts, and just now, 20 years later, we're beginning to see what happens when you have unchecked conflicts in medical care.
Okay, today is July 5th, and Mandy's having a little bit of an episode.
It's a feeling of being trapped within your own body. So it's like being wrapped up real tight like a mummy. So you can't move anything. And then having tape across your mouth. So you can't say anything. But reality is, you gotta kill them. You gotta kill the little bugs because they're taking over. No, I was okay. I was adapting my life to what was going on. Now I want it back, so it's a war.
It got so bad after the tour because I really did some damage. Wasn't willing to admit it to myself or anyone. I'm in Seattle, Washington to see Dr. Klinghardt, one of the foremost specialists on Lyme disease. This is great. I feel horrible. It's perfect. He's the one that I respect the most. He's the one that I trust. I've purposely not let myself fall into the whole trap of doctor after doctor and treatment after treatment because I'm waiting for the right one.
You guys ready? Come back, guys.
This guy. Really?
Glad to see you too. So talk to me first. Give me all the information I need to be a better doctor to you.
So how do I explain 7 years of...
Okay, so you've been ill for 7 years.
Yeah.
How old are you now?
37.
What have you done in terms of treatment?
When I found out, I started antibiotics. I did 6 months and I was so ill. And I just didn't see it as an answer.
Lyme disease is one of the many microbes that has entered our system. And I feel as a physician that things are getting to a degree that's serious. We're watching other mammals die out and kind of think, well, I'm glad it's not me. However, as our environment becomes increasingly polluted, so do our bodies. And then we'll grow the bugs in us that are not compatible with human life anymore. So you have a tremendous amount of inflammation in the gut. The Lyme disease leads to a suppression of the immune system, and then you grow these things in you that we're always exposed to. So I'm just going to first do just a few neurological tests on you. So you have a little bit borderline Babinski reflex. It's an upper motor neuron sign. It means you're sort of that significant levels of toxicity in spinal cord or brain, which is a way for me to stage how close you are to possibly developing like a more serious thing like MS. You know, older people often get Parkinson's after they've had undiagnosed Lyme, you know, or Alzheimer's. Younger people tend to, especially women, tend to get MS.
It really struck me today how much I've been in denial of this illness. I mean, I've been feeling really twitchy and just shaky, a lot of neurological stuff that it's like I can't deny it anymore. It's becoming very visible, so I think I'm just in time.
Yeah, there's a warning sign. This is not a mild situation. You're sort of like, you have to do, within the next few months, you have to resolve the issues that you can resolve. Yeah? You have to promise that to me.
I'm ready.
Yeah?
Yeah. It feels like just emergency. It's just a panic in my body that I've learned to just walk around with. Yeah, this is Dana. I am moving into 314. I finally feel like I can let go of it and give it to somebody else to take. There's someone to take my hand and get me through it. I really felt like that today. I can't believe I moved to Seattle. This is so crazy.